Hi, welcome to 5 Minutes of Torah with a BI Rabbi. I'm Rabbi Adam Stein, your BI Rabbi for today. Today is Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon when I'm filming this, and we've had the sun is out actually in Vancouver, so that's lovely this week, but it's actually been a lovely day already. This morning at our early morning minyan, 8 o'clock, Yair Infeld, Rabbi Infeld's son, was there putting on tefillin in the morning for the first time at our minyan in advance of his bar mitzvah on Saturday. We had a second minyan at 9:30 this morning to have a bar mitzvah for Wesley Cantor. It was just wonderful being with him and his family. So lots of smachot, simchas this week, and mazel tov to everyone. I unfortunately need to switch gears from the happiness of these beautiful life cycle events and occasions to a real tragedy that I feel compelled to speak about this week. And when I start mentioning tragedy here in Canada this week, you can probably guess, especially if I mention the city of Toronto, that I'm thinking and speaking about this awful van attack that happened just a few days ago. This white rental van driven by a 25-year-old man, so far in the articles online and in the newspapers, so far for unknown reasons, unknown motive, killing 10 people and injuring dozens more. Of course, I shouldn't say the van killing 10 people. This guy, this murderous driver, really killed 10 people by use of this van. I'm not even sure I feel comfortable giving him the respect of mentioning his name out loud. Really, what an awful thing to happen in our country here that is a relatively peaceful place. We see the mass shootings that happen so all too often in the U.S. and there are awful things that happen here sometimes too. A little over a year ago was the terrible shooting in Quebec City. There's violence in this downtown and other places in Vancouver and other cities here. But we like to think, or at least I do, that these terrible things happen. We see terrorist attacks in Israel and in the Middle East and in Africa, and things happen in Europe and down in the U.S. And sometimes I get lulled into thinking that it can't happen here until it does. And to hear it happening in Toronto this week was very scary. I've been reading in the news a lot about it just in the past day or two, about the victims, this driver, and those who responded, and each one is a different experience to digest. To read about the driver is one thing, but to read about these victims is really heartbreaking. I made a note of some of the victims and who they were, for those who have passed away already, and where they're from. It's truly. This part of Toronto happens to have a lot of newcomers to Canada, and of course Canada is a highly multicultural society with lots of people coming the past 10, 20 years, and that's reflected in these victims. A woman named Renuka Amarasinga, a single mother who commuted each day an hour each way to a high school cafeteria to work. She was trying to support her elderly mother back in Sri Lanka. Eddie Kang, a chef at a Brazilian restaurant, he emigrated from South Korea. Amaresh Tesfaramiam, a nurse from Eritrea. She moved here in the late 80s, thankfully still alive, but in critical condition. Another person who came from Iran, he came in 2010. And the list goes on, and it, I think not just noticing that they're international, and of course other victims just from various places in Toronto or the rest of Canada, but knowing a little bit about the victims helps really personalize a tragedy like this, which really brings it home for anyone who starts to listen or read about it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I close out is something that really relates to what we're reading about this morning in shul on Saturday morning. Acharei Mot Kedoshim is the Torah portion, actually two Torah portions. We combined two this week. It happens sometimes each year. We've done it a couple times this year. The second out of those two Torah portions, Kedoshim, starts with some famous words. Right here where Kedoshim starts, you have the words Kedoshim Tihu, Ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. The people who are holy in this tragedy are, of course, the victims. Any human being is holy, but we're seeing a lot of holy acts and holy people in the first responders. And the one who's getting a lot of notoriety, this is a man named Lamb, Ken Lamb, I believe his name is, and he is the constable, the police officer who looked straight at this perpetrator, this person who had just murdered tons of people. He was pointing something at the officer even, and he just walked towards him and refused to kill him. Some of the stories I've heard that he really intended this to be death by a police officer, a suicidal mission, and the officer just refused to kill him and arrested him instead. This enables someone, even a terrible person, to continue to live, probably in prison the rest of his life, but also, as with any attack like this, it allows us to do some research and figure out what happened and what can be fixed somehow in the future, or why this happened. Often when the person who did these things dies, like the dozens of people killed in Las Vegas, the person killed himself, and we're still searching for answers. This person, this police officer in Toronto, doesn't want the notoriety. He doesn't want to be known as the hero. He says there are a lot of heroes, but I'm certainly thinking of him. So I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. We have a wonderful weekend coming up with our first Shabbat with the difference on Friday night. You're welcome to come. You can call the office if you want to try to get in with dinner. We might have filled up already, but the service will be wonderful with instruments for the first half or so. And then Yair's Bar Mitzvah coming up on Saturday morning. Shabbat Shalom.